Mic check. Takeover TV is back. Oh, yeah, man. Oh, you know how we do. You know, we always just roll into it.
Hey.
But man, it's the first time I get a chance to get you on video. You know, been on the podcast about 2 or 3 times.
Man, yeah, I'm glad we finally got a chance to meet up. It's been a while. It's overdue. Got a lot to share with you.
Yeah. You know, it's been hit or miss, but you've been busy.
As ever, I see what Takeover's been doing, man. I've been paying attention to it on Facebook and all my social media outlets. So keep doing what you're doing, brother. You're a mainstay in my podcast, so keep it up.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know, maybe hit or miss. You know how fans are. They finicky. They've been cussing me out lately. I've been liking it, though. Man,
you just got to give the people what they need, man, and give it to them consistently. Now, in today's time, you just got to keep content flowing. They just have an insatiable desire for more and more content.
Right.
So as long as you keep feeding the people, you can't feed them and then stop feeding them for a while.
Right.
Then they go looking elsewhere.
I got the Mayweather relationship with people. Half of them love me, half of them hate me, but I like it.
Hey.
I like it. I don't need everybody to love me. It gets boring, you know.
For sure, it keeps it interesting.
But man, let's talk about this. I was scrolling through my Facebook page today. And the first thing I seen was a post from you saying that you're going to be running for chief of police.
Man, it's true. I'm excited about it.
Okay.
The Shreveport Times, I woke up this morning at about 6 a.m. I noticed that the Shreveport Times put an article out with the names of the candidates, the 8 people who will be vying for the city's police chief position. And my name is one of those positions. My name is one of those. Is on that list.
Right.
I applied maybe a month ago. I put in my packet with the intent of taking the test and offering myself to the citizens of Shreveport. I think it's due time that we have a police chief that is actually from our community, that understands our community.
Okay.
And a lifelong career law enforcement professional, and has vision, has youth, and is not going to lead the police department within the next 3 to 5 years. You know, I'm around for the long haul. Okay.
So, I mean, what made you make this decision?
Man, I'm from Shreveport.
Okay.
I'm born, raised from Shreveport. I bleed Shreveport all my life. So, being on the police department, recognizing the issues with the city, with crime, within the police department, outside of the police department, the strained relationship that the police department has with the public. I've always been very opinionated, but I've always been a person to put action behind my words. From starting businesses to getting out of my community to giving back to my community, I've always been a person to put action behind my words. So it wasn't enough for me to be a commentator with regards to the issues plaguing the police department in the city. I felt it was now time for me to throw my ring in the hat.
Right. One thing I thought about, okay, when you do win, I'm going to go predict and say that you're going to win.
I'll claim that.
I know, okay, police chief, you got a couple businesses. How are you going to, like, balance, you know, both of these?
I've dissolved all my business interests. Once I turned in my packet, I dissolved all my business interests.
Oh, okay.
Whatever. I transferred ownership of all of my businesses to partners and investors, and I currently own not a single business in the city of Shreveport. If I become your police chief, you will have my full dedication in every hour of me.
I guess that answers that, huh?
That answers it, man. You gotta be able to have balance, and you have to understand your bigger mission. Yes, I will be in business. After this is all said and done, I'll be back in business and in economics and improving our communities or whatnot. But right now, it seems that the time and the atmosphere was calling for me to do this right now. So I set all those things aside, and this is my singular focus.
Let's go back to young Marcus Mitchell, little Marcus Mitchell. So what neighborhood, of course you was born and raised here in Shreveport.
Absolutely.
Like what neighborhood you from? Like where'd you go to school at?
Good question, man. I'm originally from Cedar Grove.
Okay.
From birth until 14 years old, I lived in Cedar Grove. At 14, my grandfather passed away. He had owned a house in the Hollywood neighborhood. He passed away. My mom was the only child, so she inherited that home. From 0 to 14, I had lived in over 15 different homes. That shows you how often we were evicted, how often we moved. Imagine that, right? Never spent more than a year in one home from 0 to 15. My grandfather passed away when I was about 14 years old. My mom inherited the house. We moved to Hollywood. We didn't have to worry about rent or mortgage.
Right.
So I stayed there until I graduated high school. I went to Woodlawn High School, Linwood Middle School, Atkins Elementary School. So if you ask me what neighborhood I'm from, I always say I'm from Cedar Grove. But I'd be remiss if I didn't also say that I was raised in Hollywood.
Okay. You played sports?
Man, I tried to. I wasn't very athletic until I got a little bit older, man. I really got into sports when I joined the Army. We had some intramural leagues within the military. I played basketball for the Army.
Familiar with that.
Right. So I was one of those awkward kids until I got out of high school, and that's when I started to really get into sports and such. I was a band geek.
Okay.
And an art geek when I was in high school.
Okay. You say you joined the Army. Is that when did you make that decision that that's what you was going to do versus I'm just going to go to school?
Man, you wouldn't believe it. I made that decision at 15. My mom, I was so young that my mom had to sign a waiver to say that I could sign up at that time. So I made the decision to join the Army when I was 15, 16 years old, and they put me into what's called a delayed entry program.
Right.
As a delayed entry program, they give you access to the military base. You can go work out on the gym, shop it in the commissary. And so I had access to the Barksdale Air Force Base before I ever even went off to basic training and everything. My birthday is late in May 30th. So I graduated high school at 17, but I still had to wait another month before I turned 18 before I could go to basic training. So for 3 years, I was technically in the Army before I was actually in the Army. And then as soon as I turned 18, I hopped on a Silver Jet. The air was cold, the ground was wet, and they flew me over to St. Louis, Missouri, and I got started with my law enforcement career in the military.
So what made you choose the Army versus the Air Force? With you having access to an Air Force base and seeing all the facilities and all the, you know, being the Air Force atmosphere, what still made you choose the Army?
It came down to recruiters, man. To be honest with you, I actually almost chose the Navy first. In fact, I had not raised my hand yet, but I had committed to the Navy, to a Navy recruiter. I was supposed to go to, you know, they put you in a hotel the night before you go to the MEPS, before you go to MEPS or whatnot. And that night before I was supposed to go to the hotel, my recruiter showed up at my grandmother's house. He had on this Cracker Jack uniform, and it had stains and stuff all over. It was the weirdest thing because I was a kid, and that bothered me. It bothered me that his uniform was disheveled and that he had stains on it. Yeah. And that sole decision alone made me go to the Army.
Yeah, that's not how your uniform's supposed to look.
Right, but as a young kid, who pays attention to something like that to the point where it completely deters you from going to one military branch over the other? So he showed up to my grandmother's house with a horrible looking uniform, and I said, you know what? I like the Army recruiter. His name is Sergeant Palacios at the time. And I went to see him the following day. I didn't show up at the hotel that night. I went to see him and say, hey, I'm going to the Army instead. And from that point forward, here I am. You know,
I was originally supposed to go to the Army.
Yeah.
I got to the MEP station, not the MEP station, but the recruiter's office.
Right.
And like the Army and the Air Force, like right next door to each other. So the Army guy was at lunch. So I was sitting out there, and the Air Force guy came by. He's like, man, what are you doing? So I'm waiting on the Army recruiter. He said, man, you can wait in my office, man. You ain't got to sit out here. I was like, okay. And then he's like, so you going to join the Army? I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm going to go to the Army. He said, you ever thought about the Air Force? I'm like, no, I ain't jumping out no planes and like that. He said, no. Let me show you some stuff. So he's like, you got a girlfriend, thing like that? I'm like, yeah, you know, kind of. He's like, look. So he was going through these pictures of all these Air Force, like, man, look how these Air Force women look. And, you know, he had a BMW and all that. And I was like, damn, they got this in the Air Force? He's like, yeah. I said, man, I don't know. He said, man, have you sworn in anything? I'm like, no, you know, I'm just going to talk. He's like, well, let's talk. I said, okay. And that's all it took, was a picture of some chicks, and I was in. So,
and that's how I became a police officer in the military. I'll tell you, I went to MEPS. They pulled out my ASVAB scores, and they said, look, man, you qualify for all these different jobs, whatever. Look at the list, tell me what you want to do, and we'll get you into it. So I look at this long list, and it's so long, it's kind of daunting. And while I'm sitting there trying to peruse over the list, I look around the room, and there's this poster on the wall of this guy in SWAT gear, helmet, shin guards, knee pads, elbow pads, all black. I said, I want to do that. And he said, that's military policeman. I said, I don't care, I want to do that, or whatever. And he said, all right. And he signed me up from that point forward. And it's just, That's how my mind kind of worked when I was a kid, man. I was kind of simple but complex at the same time. Like, I chose that job, but on the back end of it, I also chose it because it was a job I knew that I could do once I got out of the military. Now, you can go into the military and be a tank mechanic,
right?
But when you come out of the military, there aren't very many tanks out here to be a mechanic on, right?
Yeah.
So I knew that policing easily translated to civilian employment, and I only went into the military with a goal of doing 4 or 5 years and getting out. And that was my whole goal: go in, get some experience, get some money in my pocket, get some education, come out, and then come back to my community and see what I can do.
So yeah, you already had it set that you was getting out after the first enlistment.
Man, I'll tell you, my entire life has been planned out since I was about 14. I'm gonna tell you what happened. Since when I was 14, we moved into the house on Hollywood that my mom inherited. And it was a 2-bedroom house, but there was about 6 of us living in that house. So my older sister had the 2nd bedroom. The rest of us, we slept on couches, floors, living room. My little sister slept with my mom and such. But my older sister ended up getting into it with my mom. They had a big drag out fight. My mom tried to beat her with a hammer, and she busted the car window out of my mama's car. It was a big deal. Well, my mom ended up kicking her out of the house after that. But when she kicked her out, she gave her room to me. And the room was in the far back corner of the house, dark room. When we first moved there, I had been scared to even go back there. It was always dark and cold back there. But once it became my room, I made it my own. But one thing that, in hindsight, I think really impacted me is my mom never said anything about me writing on the walls. And I'm an artist, so I used to write on the wall, draw on the wall, write everything. All of my dreams, my future kids' names, girls' phone numbers, ideas, raps, poems, song lyrics, what college I wanted to go to, going to the military, what my plan was after the military. So all 4 walls of my room were covered in writing. If you came in there today, you would think it was a mad kid that lived there, right?
Right.
But now, as an adult, I realized I was doing something that's very popular now. I was creating what do they call it? A vision board.
Yeah.
I was creating a vision board without even knowing. So at 14, 15 years old, I had already created my vision board, right? And every night I slept in this room. Every day I woke up, and that's all I saw was those visions, everything that I had written on those walls, and girls' phone numbers, of course. But I think over time, by the time I turned 18 and I actually left the house, whatever, all those things became ingrained in me. So even when I stepped off of my path, I always found myself still on my path. Well, I thought I stepped off my path, but I was still on it somehow. So right now I'm just moving. It's almost as if I'm moving on autopilot. Like, all of these things almost feel like they were just meant to be, you know?
Right.
Because I was telling my sisters and them when I was a kid, I was telling them that I was going to be a business owner. I was telling them that I was going to have an impact on the city. I was telling all this stuff when I was 14, 15, 16 years old, and now I'm actually having the opportunity to do that, even though at times I thought that I stepped off that path, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, I knew I was going to the Army very early on, just by nature of how we grew up. Money was tight, so I knew going to college didn't put money immediately in my pocket, and I was just tired of being broke. I was tired of being poor. So I said I'll go to the military, get money in my pocket, and get training, and I can go to school while I'm in there. So in my head, I made the deduction that if one person goes to college and another goes to the military, the guy that comes out of the military comes out with training and experience and possibly college. The guy that comes out of college only has a piece of paper. If I was hiring one of those 2 people, I'm hiring the person who actually has practical experience over the person who has a piece of paper. So I made the deduction that I would go get practical experience, put money in my pocket, and get an education while I was there. And that's worked out for me so far.
Where'd you get stationed at?
My very first duty station was in, well, I did basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. My first official duty station was Fort Meade, Maryland. At Fort Meade, Maryland, I did AWOL apprehension. I also did criminal investigations.
So what was your craziest military experience? Like, was it deployment? Did something that happened on deployment, or just something that kind of just stand out, you know?
I guess it depends on what you mean by crazy. I don't know.
Okay, let's say memorable.
most memorable.
Maybe it made that help out memorable.
I'll tell you my most memorable experiences for my time in the military was just training my soldiers, getting ready to go to combat. Actually going to combat.
Right.
And then making it back home from combat. That 2-year span of training, deploying, and redeploying is probably the most memorable time. It was by far the most memorable time I've had in the military.
Go to what, Iraq?
Yeah, I went to Iraq.
Yeah.
While I was in Iraq, we were responsible for closing the infamous Abu Ghraib prison, opened the prison Camp Cropper. We guarded Saddam Hussein and transported him back and forth during his criminal trial leading up to his execution. We built and trained police departments, and we transported insurgents from one prison to other prisons all across the Iraq and Kuwaiti region. How
was that? Did y'all ever come under any small arms fire during the transport? Or?
We got blown up a couple of times. We got blown up several times, and when I say we, I mean my company, my group, my platoons.
Exactly.
We got blown up a couple of times, and some of my soldiers are still affected by that. You know, so I left the military with mild cases of PTSD that were undiagnosed, and I am still in contact with a couple of my soldiers from that time, and they left with the same. So yeah, we had our share of experiences for sure.
So you did your 4 or 5 years, your time's done, you come back to Shreveport, and then you joined the Shreveport Police Department. How'd that whole transition shake out?
Man, I did my time in the military. I felt like I had gotten my experience. I felt like it was time for me to go back. Like I said, after I left a war zone, I came back, tried to reintegrate into regular military garrison ways of life, and the integration just wasn't smooth, man. I was kind of lonely. I realized that I was living in an apartment by myself, you know, with hardly anything in the apartment. I would work, go home to an apartment by myself, and spend all of my spare time on weekends and such by myself. So I was longing for personal connection. I was longing for someone to love, as well as longing for that family environment, to be around things that were familiar to me. So I made a decision, hard decision, to get out of the military and make my way back home. And when I came home, I came with tens of thousands of dollars that I had saved up during my time in the military, and my goal was to never work for anyone ever again. My goal was to go into my own business. I started a graphic design company, and I also wanted to do video documentaries, and similar to what Vice News does today, BuzzFeed does a little bit of it as well. I wanted to make those style documentaries. But the one thing that I didn't account for was that I had been gone for so long, I hadn't had any relationships in the city when I came back. No one knew of me when I came back, besides the people I had graduated high school with, but long had lost contact with. So I didn't have any of the human resources that were needed in order to push the things that I wanted to do forward. So after a while, I started burning through my finances, trying to fund something that I didn't really have the resources for. And I had to make the tough decision. I got to get a job. And while I waited on the Shreveport Police Department to call me back, I signed up for the Cattle Juvenile Detention Center. And for the Juvenile Detention Center, I served as a security counselor for the kids. And then the police department came calling. And once they called, I joined, and I haven't looked back since.
Well, you know, thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Because it's one of those jobs that people study, talk about, and criticize, but nobody wants to do it. At least the people that's the most critical.
That's real.
It's one of those jobs like, I don't think I could do it. I don't think I even want to do it, because
it takes a special person and a special place of mind, and that doesn't mean that a person who can't do it is lesser or greater than another person. It's just policing is a it's a very I don't know, it's a very particular field, and it takes a very particular type of person who can do it for the long haul.
Right. In current times, and I guess this element's always been around, there's always been, I want to say, a mistrust between the community and the police.
Absolutely.
You know, that we all know that element is there.
Absolutely.
For the few bad people that had caused that. How do we bridge that gap? How do we fix that relationship between the communities and the police department?
Man, it's all based off of trust, man. Trust and familiarity. familiarity.
Right.
If you have trust and you have familiarity, then the people aren't so much skeptics of police and their operations. If you have transparency, if you involve the communities in policing decisions and such, those things go a long way towards bridging that gap. And I would say that the gap is wide, and you're right. There is a ongoing perception of mistrust amongst between the public and law enforcement at large. Mm-hmm. But I feel that the major onus is on the police departments of America in order to walk the furthest length in that gap in order to bridge it, right?
Right.
We have to do the most work or whatever, because the public has a reason why they mistrust police officers. Whether it's valid or not, they have a reason why. Whether it's how someone in their family was treated, whether it's a case that went unsolved, whether it's how they see us portrayed in the news or anything, they've developed. They didn't come to this decision out of nowhere. It's not something they pulled out of thin air. This is their reality on the ground. So as a good law enforcement agency, you have to understand that, value their perspective, and work with them in order to improve that perspective, right? Improve that relationship. And one of the best things that you can do as a citizenry to improve your police departments in that connection is to, one, elect police chiefs who are actually from those communities, who are committed to those communities, who understand the needs of the communities and has a vision that includes the community. A lot of our police chiefs all across America, they have visions for their police departments that's only based on their role as a police officer. But once you get the ones that understand the community and they wrap their vision around what the community needs as well as what the police officers need, that's when you start making progress.
There's been instances that we've seen in the last couple of years where a suspect is running away from the police officer. We've seen the police officer shoot and kill the suspect. Is that the proper protocol when a suspect is running away? Is it shoot to kill, or is it shoot to slow down or injure? What's the actual proper protocol for that situation? Man,
every police department is different, first and foremost, or whatnot. So when we see videos, we might see them from Minneapolis, we might see them from Ferguson, you might see them from Carolina or different. But every municipal police department has its own general orders, its own standard operating procedures, and its own rules and guidelines by which it governs itself, right? So when I address that issue, I would hate to cast a wide net over America, because that would be unfair to the individual police departments. Okay. With that said, I think officers must understand their general orders and their SOPs and operate within those at all costs, at all times. We can't afford to step outside the bounds of our duties at any point whatsoever. And citizens need to understand what an officer's duties are. Okay. And submit themselves to the officers actually performing their duties, and try not to make that interaction too difficult in order to where it becomes dangerous for either one of them, right? But to answer your question more directly, there is no one protocol to how you respond to those things. There's individual circumstances, and you must treat each one of those circumstances as an individual circumstance. And I know that's hard when we look at the media, when we look at social media and whatnot, and all you see is several instances of where it appears that a police officer is stepping outside of the reins of the law and acting too aggressively or being too brutal in his duties or whatnot. We still have to try to force ourselves to look at each circumstance individually and collect as much information about those circumstances, and to try to put ourselves in the mind of the person as well as in mind of the police officer or whatnot, and try to understand each other in entirety, you know?
Right, right. Because it's a lot of those instances, there's always, most of the time, there was a acquittal by the jury. Is that because of the circumstance, or is there something? I never understood that if there's video evidence, why there wasn't a guilty charge. Well, maybe that's my lack of knowledge of policing or
Well, that's where you get into the courts, and I hate to dig into those weeds because that's the courts. That's outside of the police departments.
Right.
Once it gets to a court, that's an entirely different beast. And again, just the way there are several police departments and they have their own operating guidelines or whatever, and there's certain criteria in each different court that a police officer or any other person might find themselves in, and they have their own guidelines and their own practices and tendencies or whatnot. So I hate to weed too deeply into that water because it gets really, really murky the further you go into it. But I would say that a large time is not that one is that officers are sometimes found guilty of these crimes, but we don't. The news doesn't report on when officers are actually found guilty.
They report on the acquittals.
Right.
Okay.
But they report on the acquittals because that's salacious, that's insightful, you know, and it makes people angry and it makes them relate and it makes them share that news article over and over again. You know, the same thing is always true. You know, good news never goes reported in the same way that bad news is reported. And that's true. Unfortunate.
Me being in the media, yeah, that
right.
is true.
And that's very unfortunate.
Now let's get back to Marcus Mitchell, the police officer / the person. You had a picture the other day where you was interacting with some kids.
Yeah.
And I guess they asked to see your gun or whatever. What was you actually doing that day? You were just patrolling and...
Man, I serve warrants. I'm on the warrants team, so we search for fugitives all day long. That's all we do, and we do a really good job at it. We have a great supervisor. We have a great group of guys. Shouts out to my guys. We do a good job for the city of Shreveport in doing that. But we were out at the apartment complex looking, just talking to the apartment manager, looking for a person to see if they still live there. And while my guys were dealing with that, talking to the apartment manager and some citizens, I was on the other side in the parking lot. And these kids, they ran up to the car, man. They're asking for candy and such. And I'm talkative, as you can tell.
Right.
So, and I love kids, and I love being inside of the community in that way. So I invite them over. They come over and they start talking to me, and it just everything else is captured on video.
I thought that was a cool interaction, the whole picture, and I think we need more of those kind of images where policemen are interacting with the kids, interacting with the community, and get more positive images out there that kind of maybe help change the narrative of what people think of the police, because there is a lot of great policemen out there that don't get the credit because I feel like they're overshadowed by the few rotten apples that are doing the wrong things.
Absolutely. We can definitely do a good job of advertising ourselves a little bit more, but with that, I think it also has to be genuine. It has to be authentic. The streets, the communities, they can see through inauthenticity very, very easily. So if you're showing up with cameras and such just to say that you're out in the communities and such, they can see through that very, very easily because they never seen you before. So when I'm going out and I'm in the communities as Marcus Mitchell, it's authentic and it's genuine to them because they see me when I'm in civilian clothes out in those same communities, playing basketball, visiting family members, being involved in their community issues or whatnot. So when I show up, they know it's Marcus Mitchell, and they know that it's just coming from my heart, and it's not me showing up for a photo op. It's not me showing up just to say that, look at us, the police, we're out here being great in your community. No, as long as it's genuine, as long as police officers have a genuine respect for the people that they police or whatever, then everything else becomes kind of easy from that point forward. The citizens don't mind talking to you, and you don't have a hard time talking to them. And everything becomes a little bit easier. And as long as you keep doubling down on that, it gets easier and easier and easier. And before long, you have 200,000 plus eyes on your streets that help you in your policing duties. They become familiar with you. And with familiarity, as we said before, that's where trust and respect comes from, right? Right,
exactly. So does it bother you when people compare the Bossier City Police to the Shreveport Police? Man, Bossier City doesn't play. Bossier does this. Bossier do that. Shreveport Police, man, you can get away with anything. It's gonna take them forever to respond. You know, I mean, you've heard these things the same way I've heard it. So
the short answer is yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. It burns me to my core, man, because we have some really, really good officers on the police department. Really, really good officers, man. Despite limited resources, despite adequate incentives or whatnot, we have some officers that are from these communities, grow up in these communities, went to school here, play sports here, are really invested in the community that decide to put a pin on that badge and go to work every day to defend and protect and be responsive to the needs of this city or whatnot. So when Bossier gets that kind of they have this lore about themselves as being the epitome of what law enforcement officers should be. Yeah, it burns me up a little bit, but it doesn't burn me up in a way that says that Bossier is undeserving of that. It burns me up in that Shreveport Police needs to do a better job of advertising itself, being more responsible to the citizens' needs or whatnot, so that it can take its rightful place as being the preeminent law enforcement agency within the Arklatex region.
And that brings us like present time. You're right. You're going to run for chief.
Yeah.
What are like two of your top priorities that you would put on your top of your list for the Shreveport Police Department if you become chief?
Man, take care of the citizens, take care of my officers. That's it, man. Everything else, of course, I used to have a vision. I had this long, detailed vision. I had a book, studies, and everything that I would do if I ever became police chief or whatever. But then I had to humble myself and realize that if I am going to lead people, if I'm going to take impactful change, if I'm going to get people to buy in and claim ownership of the police department in this future, I need to listen to them. So I mentally took my vision and balled it up. Doesn't really matter that much. The first thing that I would do as a police officer, as a police chief, is to, over the first 90 days, meet with all 500 of police officers individually, one-on-one meetings, to find out what their concerns are, what their needs are, how do they vision the police department, what do they see the problems with the police department are, and where we can go in the future. And then after I do that, or while I do that, I'm also meeting with community leaders, voices within our communities, the influencers within our communities, city councilmen, representatives, private and public groups and organizations with the goal of improving our city. Meet with them to see what their vision is for the city. How can the police department better assist them? What kind of police department do they want to see? And then once I've interviewed all those people, now I will reformulate a vision based off of all this collected information that I've gained, right?
Right.
And that's where my vision for the Shreveport Police Department will come. So as of right now, my vision is balled up and it's been reduced to one thing. Listen to the citizens and to my police officers, and then be responsive to their needs and their concerns.
Like that. Like that. I want to get to Marcus Mitchell the person. We're going to step out the police uniform and we're going to get to Marcus Mitchell the person.
Man, this is Marcus Mitchell the person, though.
The person. I always separate.
What you want me to do? Play dominoes right now?
We can. I'll win.
Stop it.
I'll see. Here we go. Here we go.
That's the person that you want to see right now. You want me to say, stop it. Don't get yourself embarrassed.
Okay. All right. We'll see.
We have a camera here. Don't do that to yourself. Wait till we're not recording for you to be embarrassed. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay. See that? Yeah, this is the Marcus Mitchell. I'm not saying that it wasn't you, but yeah. Now this sounds real familiar right now.
I'm a competitive man. I'm a competitor through and through. I always have been. Even when I was young and wasn't really good at sports, you still had to beat me 100 times before I went home. Like, you got to keep beating me until we just can't see the goal anymore. You know. So I've always been a competitor, and that's an engraved part of me to this day.
I want to get Marcus Mitchell Facebook. You normally have the most engaging, insightful, just etc. on different posts. Where do you come up with some of this stuff that you post?
man, you'll think I'm lying. I wake up in the morning and the first thing that comes to my mind, I type it in Facebook, more often than not. I really don't dedicate that much thought, but I tell you, a lot of my thoughts come. I'm a very cerebral person. Like, I don't listen to the radio when I'm driving. I listen to ocean sounds when I'm sleeping. I meditate while I'm driving to work, meditate while I'm driving home. You know, I'm that type of person. So I spend a lot of time in my own head and thinking. So I have these ideas, they flood my brain, and sometimes I just throw it out to the world, man. And I think it's so genuine, and it comes from a healthy place that people gravitate towards it, and they're very responsive to it, and they contribute to the dialogue. And I normally just, I stoke those flames, and I keep the conversation going without putting myself into it, and stoke the flames in a positive way, not in a negative way. I think I've been fully dedicated to nothing but positivity. So put positivity out there in the universe, and then positivity is likely to come back to you. That's one of my personal personal ways of governing myself.
We've had this debate before.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to reopen this debate again.
What's that?
Me and you debated at one time between Drew Brees and Tom Brady.
Easy.
Since that time, Tom Brady has won another Super Bowl ring, which puts him at 6. And are you still going to make the same claim that Drew Brees is still the GOAT?
I'll say this and I'll be done with it. Super Bowl rings are a team accomplishment.
Okay.
When we're talking about a person that's individually best at his position on the football field, best at his position on the football field, the stats speak for himself. The numbers speak for itself. Drew Brees is number 1 in just about every meaningful category in the NFL history. So if you're going to take a team stat and attach it to Tom Brady to say that makes him better than Drew Brees when we're talking about individuals, I think that's a, I don't know, I think that's a half-baked argument.
But I think it's part of it, though. I think it's part of it.
I would say this. I would say Belichick is a better coach than Sean Payton. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you Belichick is the best coach in NFL history.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. So Belichick, with his Super Bowl rings, is the best to ever done it from the coaching position.
I agree with that.
So, again, Super Bowls are a team accomplishment. It takes a defense, it takes special teams, it takes coaching, it takes a quarterback, it takes a running back, it takes a lot of different things. It takes wide receivers to catch the ball, it takes good play calling, it takes a lot of different things. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about individual prowess at a particular position. When it comes to throwing the football accurately, completing the football, throwing for the most yardage, making the most out of his receivers, there's no quarterback in the history of the NFL that has done that to a better degree than Drew Brees.
I still disagree. Still disagree.
What you calling? What's his name? His top receiver right now. I can't think. Michael Thomas is his first All-Star receiver.
Okay, receiver, but he did have Jimmy Graham.
Okay, he was a tight end.
That played damn near receiver.
It doesn't matter.
By position, he played tight end. But
what I'm saying is,
a receiver.
He was his first All-Star wide receiver, and Drew Brees holds every record several times over in the NFL for passing. What more does he have to do? Besides, I mean, of course, the team needs to win more rings, of course.
I think you got.
But that doesn't diminish his ability as an individual. As an individual, he's excellent. He's the best ever.
Yeah, he's great.
The best ever.
I can't say he's the best ever. I think if you don't even have a league MVP, I don't know if you could be in that conversation. That's an individual award, though.
He's been robbed. He's been robbed several times. How do you have over 5,000 yards passing, right? With the top 3 highest season percentage completion percentages, top 3. So not only is he throwing the ball more, he's completing more.
But why was he throwing the ball more?
It doesn't matter why. He's a quarterback. They throw balls. He throws it more and he completes more of his passes than anybody else in the NFL history. How can you have several 5,000 yards passing seasons and never be NFL MVP? Ever? That's a disservice. Kobe Bryant only had one NBA MVP.
His was, he got robbed out of a couple.
He had to share one with Shaq, right? Didn't he get robbed?
That was an All-Star.
Oh, that was an All-Star game. He had to share with Shaq.
But yeah, he has one league MVP.
He had one league MVP. Was he only the MVP of the league one time in 20 years?
He came in at the wrong time. He was sandwiched between Jordan and LeBron.
And that's the same thing. Drew Brees came in at the wrong time, but his stats still overshone everyone else that he was competing against. His stats still prove it. However, the greatest new things always interrupts Drew Brees' trajectory. So last season, he was on a breakneck pace. Should have been MVP, but then somebody named Patrick Mahomes comes in or whatever and just shows out. It was Patrick Mahomes, right? That just showed out and right.
And deservedly so.
And then before that, he's always competing in a league full of great people. So
with
you had
Aaron Rodgers.
You had your Todd Gurley's, you had your Aaron Rodgers, your Tom Brady's, your Adrian Peterson's, your Peyton Manning. Drew Brees played amongst all of them and within his position, put up the best stats the leagues have ever seen.
But winning,
he's been robbed.
Winning has to count.
Winning is a team. Winning is. Can you be great at your position and be on a team that sucks?
But I can't say you are the
Can you be the greatest running back ever but never have a ring?
Yeah, Barry Sanders.
Okay. So why is it true that you can be the greatest running back ever and never have a ring, but you can't be the greatest quarterback ever and only have one ring? Why is that true?
Is Barry
because we look at Barry as an individual. We look at his individual stats and his individual priors for his position. We're not looking at him. We're not judging him based off of team metrics. We judge him based off of his individual priors on the field, right?
Right. With
so why do we stop doing that when it comes to Drew Brees?
I don't know. Quarterbacks are measured by a different measure.
And I think that's a mistake.
QB.
I think that's a mistake. Because a team winning the Super Bowl or losing the Super Bowl, it really has more, the coach has more influence on that than the quarterback.
But
the quarterback only plays one side of the ball.
Right. Well, we can't, like, Brady's just no scrub that just happened to ride to 6 rings. Like
I never said he was. I never said he was
John
scrub.
Sally or somebody, that just rolled to a few
I never
rings.
said it was a scrub. But what I'm saying is, if Brady and Brees changed position, if Brady went and played for Belichick, would he have 6 rings? I could say yes. You could say yes too. If Brady went and played with Sean Payton in New Orleans with the teams that he has, would he have 6 rings? Probably not.
Don't know.
So the coaching and the environment is what makes the difference. You don't know, but you can't say definitively yes. You can't say Brady go to New Orleans and play under the same teams that Drew Brees had, the same coaching that he has, that he would have 6 rings now. You can't say that definitively. But we can say, based off of stats, that Drew Brees in Tom Brady's position would definitely have 6 rings now. Because his stats were better. His stats were better. His completion percentages were better. So how would he not?
So why can't LeBron be the GOAT then? His stats.
What about him? His stats are better than Jordan's?
Where is he at scoring right now? He passed Jordan.
No. Okay.
He passed Jordan.
Okay, he passed Jordan, but he's still behind Kobe. So if you just go based off of scoring stats, is Kobe better than LeBron if you're going off of scoring stats? Or do we look at Jordan as a complete individual player? Do we look at Jordan as being all defensive team? Offensive MVP. I mean, MVPs.
Right.
Several.
Right.
6 consecutive championships with a break in between. Like, we look at Jordan as a total package because he was a total package.
He was.
LeBron is an offensive player. Jordan was offense, defense. Everything that you needed on the basketball court, Jordan could be.
LeBron was defense at one time.
Jordan was defense at all times.
Yeah, he was. I'm not saying LeBron is the GOAT.
I'm telling you why not.
Is he better than Kobe?
LeBron?
Yeah.
Skill-wise, yeah. He's not more talented than Kobe. But skill-wise, his body holds up or whatever. If Kobe had LeBron's body and the same mentality and the same skill set or whatever, Kobe would be great. And I think Kobe is a victim of timing too.
Yeah, he is.
Kobe came in at the end of Jordan's career and the beginning, and he caught the beginning of LeBron. So he's sandwiched in between 2 greats, right? So he never had the spotlight to himself. And even when he did have a few years where he could have had the spotlight to himself, he was still in Shaq's shadow. So Kobe is a victim of circumstance, right? And I think LeBron is a better player than Kobe or whatever, but Kobe was more talented than LeBron.
I could buy that.
LeBron is more efficient, man. He can do a lot on the court. He's bigger, he's stronger, he can pass, he can play under the basket, he can play outside or whatever. Kobe could simply play defense and he can get buckets any way that you will allow him to get buckets. So we'll just go with it. We agreed on something. We'll just say that.
I'm still not agreeing that.
Cameraman is losing his mind over here. You losing your mind, bro? You might as well say it now. What you got?
Tom Brady is still the GOAT.
I mean,
I have more people side with me than they will side with you on this.
I understand. I mean, it's hard being right. I
know. I'm having a hard time being right
There's
now.
more people in America that are wrong about things than right about things.
Anyway, like I said, I think Tom Brady is still the GOAT. Drew Brees is very, very, very good.
Great, but
he would have had a good chance to win the Super Bowl this year if the referees wasn't slacking in their duties of missing the pass interference
And
call.
last year with the Minnesota Miracle.
I think that was self-inflicted. You know, you got one guy that was, I don't know what the hell he was doing.
Marcus Williams.
Yeah, he was living infamy. No matter what he does in the future, unless he runs a pick six to win the Super Bowl, that'd be what he's known for. Trying to tackle the ground. I mean, how do y'all recover from that?
Deep, bro. We can stop talking about it if you want.
I just want to know as a Saints fan, how do you recover from that? Well, 2 years in a row.
Well, we tried to recover from the Minnesota Miracle by winning the Super Bowl this year.
Then you had that.
And then we had the infamous no call.
So what's next year? What's next year?
I'm scared to say, man. We've been vexed a little bit, but with the team that we have, with the coach that we have, with the quarterback that we have, even the fact that we got Brady, Teddy Bridgewater sitting on the bench, ready to start whenever we need him.
Yeah.
Even if Drew Brees, if his age catches up with him, I have confidence in Bridgewater. I think he's starting to. He's still good though.
He is.
But I think we can give another run this year. I think we have it in us to give it another run. Alvin Kamara is a beast. Beast. Michael Thomas, in my opinion, is right now the #1 wide receiver in the NFL, without question. And I know they still give it to AB, they still give it to Odell Beckham or whatever, and they still give it to Julio. But Michael Thomas his catch rate, is unheard of. He's catching almost 90% of the balls thrown at him.
Is that because Drew Brees has a lack of targets, or is it because he's that good? I think it's a combination of both. It
could be a combination of both, but you still got to catch the ball.
Yeah, you do.
Other receivers ain't catching the ball at the clip that he's catching balls, man. The dude is spectacular. His uncle is Keyshawn Johnson or whatever, so he has a good support system from the NFL. I think he's going to continue to blossom, and by next year or the year thereafter or whatever, he would be unanimously the #1 receiver in the NFL without question. Dude is a beast, man, and he's hungry. He wants it. Good body. He don't really have the top end speed, but he has the ability to get open, and he simply catches the ball. And that's all you need. Just if I throw it to you,
just catch it. That's your job.
That's it. He gets paid millions of dollars to catch a ball, and he catches it at a greater clip than anybody else in the NFL right now. So our O-line is tough, and I think we're going to boost it up in the offseason as well, or whatever. As long as our defense is middle of the pack, every year if we got a middle of the pack defense, our offense can carry the rest. And last year our offense kind of let us down a few of those games or whatnot.
Towards the end,
yeah, absolutely. We kind of struggled our way into the playoffs, but I think next year we're going to put a good run together, and hopefully maybe third time's a charm. We'll see.
We'll see. But
I mean, even when he get a second Super Bowl, y'all still won't say that he's the greatest quarterback. So it really doesn't matter. He's the greatest regardless. But for Saints fans, we need another ring before he goes out. It's a great way to send him home.
I agree. I can agree with that.
Yeah.
He still ain't the greatest, but I agree.
All right.
You need to send him out with a ring.
All right. You're wrong again, but.
Well, man, it's been an honor. It's been an honor, doing this interview with you. We definitely going to do a part 2 because there's so much other stuff we could have hit on, but,
man,
we want to keep this going.
We didn't get on any business stuff or nothing. It wasn't projects in the works or anything like that, which I know I said, well, you dissolved my interest in business or whatever, but that doesn't mean that I still don't keep my eye out for the things that are going on. There's a lot of people opening up great businesses.
Well, hit us with a few of them that the public might not know about right now.
Man, one, Louisiana Daiquiri Cafe just opened up. They've been open for less than a few weeks now.
Yeah, I've been there.
The early exit polling says that they're a great spot. I had a text on my phone the other day from a friend that says that it's her new favorite spot to hang out at.
Right.
So Mark, Jonathan, David, y'all keep doing what y'all doing, man. And I think y'all are on to something. Keep revitalizing that area. Bonton's Coffee Bar, the team says that's going to be moving to a new undisclosed location as of right now.
Okay.
But better product, better service, and in a better location that's more easily accessed. We might even give you a drive-through in the heart of downtown somewhere. So keep looking out for that. The current Bonton's Coffee Bar location is going to be transformed into a new business, from what I'm being told. And looking forward to that. I won't spill the beans on what that new business is going to be just yet. Wait till the ink dries on that. But I don't know. We'll save it for the next interview, man. We got a lot to talk about. There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of people doing very, very good things, very big things in the city, and businesses are popping up everywhere, man. And I love it. I feel like our city finally starting to believe in itself again. So that's a good thing, man. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, public, please support these businesses.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're gonna make me go on a tangent. Don't worry about it. Support local businesses.
Oh boy. Yeah, we say the tangent for part 2. But good luck to you in your quest to become the chief of police in Shreveport. We're gonna be behind you 100%. You ever need anything? Hey, you know where to find us. You know where to hit us up.
I'll say this: a lot of people text me, they phone me, they say I got their support. I want to encourage everyone that to remember that support is an action verb. If I'm hanging from a cliff and you're standing at the bottom saying, I support you, but you ain't throwing me no rope, you ain't building no ladder or nothing, that's not real support, right? Right?
Correct.
You're just encouraging or whatever. If you support me, put some action behind it. Have these conversations within your homes, within your living rooms, within your circles of influence. Reach out to your city councilman, reach out to your mayor, whatever. Make your voice heard. Make it known what you want from your city or whatnot, and hopefully through that level of support, actual support or whatever, we can start the process of transforming the city and providing y'all with a better police department as well. So again, thank you for your time, man. It's an honor for me to be here. I'm glad to be the first interviewee on the rehashing of Takeover Podcast TV, man. So Superstar P, it's always a pleasure, brother.
Anytime.
For sure.
Anytime. That's it. We out.